everybody, Brandon Jones here. I got my friend Daniel Bloodworth joining me to talk about some independent games.
Nice.
So Judges Week, every year, they have this wonderful event called the Independent Evening, where a bunch of devs get together and show off their games. So you get to, it's fun because you get to hang out with journalists that week, and so it's always at night. So it's like the last appointments. We're all relaxing, and we got to check out some cool stuff. Some of the stuff we can't talk about until E3, but a lot of the stuff we can talk about right away. And so this is going to be a grab bag of a lot of different crazy games. Some of the stuff you've already played. I think some of the stuff you might know better than I do. But for those of you that haven't checked this stuff out, all of this stuff was playable that night. I got my hands on all of these games, and I enjoyed all of them. I'm very excited to talk about these. First up is The Creature in the Well.
Yeah.
And this, for people that might be listening to this and not looking at it, the best, I don't know if you ever saw Heavy Metal in the 80s, the animated film.
Okay.
With the rock music in it. Kind of has this like 90s comic book, very sharp, bold lines.
I think they said Hellboy is one of their inspirations.
Yes.
So.
It is a top-down action pinball game. Basically, like you are going through. They actually said it was not that long. They're like, this is something that you might, and actually noticed the game change a little bit because I watched people play it, before I actually was able to jump in. But you are a robot. You have this massive sword, and you're basically doing two main attacks as you're walking through this. Who am I talking? You've played this game. As you're going through this game, one is a charge. So what I thought was fun is you go into these rooms where they're just kind of interesting, not necessarily classic pinball setups, but stuff that you want to smack stuff toward. But you want to make sure those things are charged up. So you hold down one button and you swing your sword around a bunch and you charge up these balls of energy, and then you send them off. And then when they're coming back at you, you want to hit a separate button that's like your deflect. And so you imagine like you charge, throw it, and then whack as these things are, bouncing all over the place. And it was fun because like I feel like half of it was something I intended to happen, and the other half was like, oh, okay, I guess the puzzle solved. Great. What was your experience from playing this?
So I played it at the Nindies event at GDC. And so it's kind of funny because last year we had Yoku's Island Express where you basically play as the pinball, and this one you're playing as the flipper essentially. So you hit the kind of pinball-like machines to be able to get up enough energy to open up the doors and make your way further into these dungeons.
Yeah.
And then there's some kind of I don't know if you got to any of these areas where they're kind of like timed challenges where like things will pop up almost like whack-a-mole, and like you've got to respond really quickly to get them all in sequence.
I also like that some of the balls that you were using were ones that are being shot at you. So there's one room where there were two turrets, and just gamer instinct, I go in there, I got to power down these turrets and then I can walk through. Well, the whole time I was in that room, the turrets don't stop firing. Like they're just basically producing these balls. And so you have a health meter, so you take damage if you just outright get smacked by these things. But I thought that was fun that they're like, no, you have to power the door to just get out of here. And then these things are going to be continually firing at you. So there was one boss sequence where like there were lasers shooting across, so that you have the circle that's spinning, and so you got to be dodging these things, but also cognizant of like, where are the things I've already shot? Are they going to come back around? I can deflect them at something, or should I grab new ones and charge them up? And then where's even that one? I've already knocked that one down. Oh, it's this one. It's coming around. Like, it was fun, and it was frantic, but it didn't seem like too crazy difficult. I imagine this is just obviously the beginning of the game that I played.
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably the same demo, and it sounded like it was like literally designed to be a demo. It's kind of a mashup of different rooms and mechanics from that'll be different in the final game.
But felt really good, had a great style. And the one last thing before I move on to the next game is there's this creature in the well. You are going through this mountain canyon area that also has these like factories and big production pipelines built into it. And then you have this beast, this strange monster that's hiding in the darkness. So there's some fun areas where I would just be like walking on a platform and you could see just these eyes blinking up at you like from deep in the depths. And it's kind of scary but kind of cute at the same. It's weird. It's this very strange animal that you are trying to defeat. You are trying to expose that this beast as far as you assume means harm the people in this nearby village. And so, but the demo that I played was very much just gameplay. But apparently, like there is an interesting kind of bare bones narrative behind it. That if you dig deep, if you look up recordings and emails and stuff like that, or messages that you'll uncover as you go through the game, it'll reveal more about the story. But just stylistically was really great and was fun. You were just far enough away from it. The camera's pulled back pretty far, and just stylistically, I thought it was just very fun visually. And another thing that I love about Independent Evening, you're walking around and just what is this weird pinball sword robot horror action? There's just a lot of things going on in that game, and I thought it was really cool. Bumped into our old GT Live friends, the devs of Oxenfree.
Okay.
We're working on a new game called Afterparty, which has previously been announced, but got to play it, got to watch Steimer from What's Good Games. She was playing it when I came up, and I got to watch her make all the terrible mistakes. But interesting because Oxenfree is very high drama, very teen drama. Lots kids having issues, supernatural undertones. Ghosts and messages, a little bit of time travel in there. Kind of Stranger Things, X-Files, but very somber. It's a very and you're very much pulled back. A lot of the times I was playing Oxenfree, the characters were very small, and you could see a lot of the environment as you were navigating through it. And I love that experience. I thought that was so unique, and I just loved the storytelling, and I loved the options that were available to you in a lot of conversations. I thought the dialogue was very well written in terms of how kids would talk and the attitudes of these characters. Total left turn with their new game, 100% comedy, very dark comedy. So you are in hell. It's called Afterparty. You have died and you have gone to hell, and you find out that the devil loves to, Satan, what have you, loves to throw parties, loves to have parties down there. There's a lot of scenes in bars when you're there. The demons, do what they do throughout the day, but at night, they're off the clock, and so they all go and they, drink various drinks while you're at the bar with everyone else. And you discover that if you outdrink the devil, if you challenge the devil to a drinking contest and win, then you grant your rights to go back to the mortal world.
Okay.
And so this is a first and foremost an adventure game, mostly just kind of like Oxenfree was. There is exploration, but the characters were a lot bigger. There was a lot of stuff going on. Oxenfree was very much the environment that you were looking at. It was very desolate. A lot of these places were abandoned, and it was really just you and this handful of characters going through. Stuff happening all over the place. Demons doing practical jokes, stuff happening in the foreground, stuff happening in the background. You go out into the city of downtown hell or whatever, and it's just lots of fun eye candy, fun signs, fun parody. Almost kind of gave me a Leisure Suit Larry vibe. There's just it's every time you go into a new area, there's some joke happening somewhere, and there's some fun thing going on in the background. And the dialogue was hilarious. So if you remember, as I said before, the options that you would get to say to people in Oxenfree, I thought were very honest and interesting, and definitely different choices compared to the things that you could say. And this, they really ratcheted up. The red flashing speech bubble is usually the I have no patience anymore. I don't care. I'm just gonna say obscene things. And didn't get a lot of opportunities. This is very much just the introduction to the story that we played. But apparently, you can drink various drinks, and those give you various side effects. So, so kind of like Felix Felicis in Harry Potter. If you want to maybe throw one of these things back and see what happens if you go and try to do an objective. And Oxenfree was not that long, and so I asked them if I finish this, would I be curious to go back through and maybe do a very aggressive playthrough? Or they mentioned some that I'm completely paraphrasing, but something to the likes of one makes you speak like Shakespeare, they do all sorts of weird things to the text. Some you can tell in a classic adventure game fashion will directly help me with the mission I'm about to do, and some are just who cares, if I'm not necessarily worried, or I just kind of want to throw caution to the wind. Just a really fun attitude, a great game for the Independent Evening because it was a fun game to watch other people play, to watch the decisions that they would make. Not a lot of freedom. It was really just an introduction to the world and introduction to the combat. But I just thought it was so fun from this team to do this because Oxenfree was so spooky and so melodramatic to immediately turn around and do something very funny, very, in-your-face supernatural, and something that had a lot of fun attitude. And I asked them, I'm like, was that almost kind of like a knee-jerk that you wanted to do something opposite? And they were like, yeah, we felt we did that, and so we wanted to see, how silly we could get. And, I don't know the length, but as they said, short enough that you would feel that you could maybe experiment with not only, the tools that you're using, but the dialogue options. Right in the middle of this entire evening, right in the middle of this venue, set up on a big circular couch, was a game called Supermarket Shriek.
Oh, okay.
And this is a game you are meant to play with a speaker. So you were meant to, or with a microphone.
Oh.
So you are two characters that are on opposite sides of a shopping cart. And you are racing as fast as you possibly can through aisles of various shopping, markets and other crazy environments. Obviously, there's things you wouldn't find in there, lava pits and trap doors and stuff like that.
Right.
Very silly game. The style almost kind of has like an Overcooked vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the catch is, and this is just one way you can play the game, but this is the way that, of course, they wanted all of us to check it out. And, of course, I watched Greg Miller and Andrea Renee play this, so I'm just like, that was better than anything that I could have experienced. If you just make noise, it turns your side of the cart.
Oh, wow.
So okay. You're kind of like, okay, take it left, wait, okay, go. And so it's like Greg Miller and Andrea Renee screaming at each other as they're just like, because you get yourself, it's tricky because you're if you try to get momentum to get through one area, they might have very intentionally put a drop off right there. So you're like, yay, we made it through. And then you're going full speed and you just go flying off the edge. If you want, you can also play it with just controllers where one of you can do it on one controller where a Jolly Cooperation style where
nice.
you do the left trigger, I do the right trigger. We try to figure out that way. We can also do split controllers where both of our triggers operate whatever side that we're assigned to, or you can play it yourself. You can just play. And because it is, there's leaderboards. This is obviously the whole point of every single level in this game is to get through as fast as possible. So you can do the party game method where like your scores are going to be awful, but it's fun to try to actually see if you can get through by just using your voice. Or you can just play it by yourself and actually get really competitive and try to drift a lot and know where your power ups are and know what memorize the maps and know how quickly you can get through.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean.
Just a crazy game. I mean, I had not heard about this.
So the mic, is it just like a regular like little plug-in mic on the PS4? Or?
I imagine you could use your headset for this. They had two. They just look like Yetis. They just had two like regular mics set up. And I actually did not check. I don't know if that was running on a console or running on a PC. The dev was very fun, had just a fun attitude, and definitely seemed like the kind of game where you walk up like, interesting, and I think that's what you're expecting, the reaction that they're expecting. Very silly game. I think the game I was blindsided by the most.
Okay.
Where I'm like, wow, this is not typically my genre, but this is so fascinating. It's called Phantom Brigade, and this is from the Crypt of the Necrodancer team, who is already in the headlines right now.
Okay.
From working on being able to partner with the Zelda franchise, and it's interesting that they're working on this game because it's very much not like Crypt of the Necrodancer, but at the same time, it's about timing. They're playing with the concept of your perception of time moving through a particular genre. In this case, turn-based strategy, I guess you would call this. So basically, how this game is played, you are in control of. In the very beginning of it, I just controlled one mech, and then for the meat of it, I controlled two. And the demo took me about 10-15 minutes, but I was actually manipulating about 40 seconds of real time. And so I was in a little town, and then a bunch of tanks and another mech came out of the forest. And you have a timeline. And as a video editor, I was like, like this is so great.
Okay.
You have a timeline on the bottom of the screen. And if you scroll your mouse, and they said the HUD was very much in flux. Like, I actually just showed Blood this game before we started the video and loaded up a video from last year, and the HUD looked totally different. So, like, I think this game right now is more of a concept, and they're really trying to think of, like, how can we want this to be on consoles, but we don't know how the heck. There's so much going on. There's so much you're clicking on that it really does fit for PC at launch. But when you move, just like you were editing, you move the playhead across the timeline, and you can see lines of specifically where the enemies are planning to go.
Okay.
So if you haven't moved yet and you haven't assigned your mechs yet, you can be like, okay, these tanks are going to come out there. I got this wall here. They're not going to see me if I come up around the side. I got this other mech. And within each target, you can see their left side, right side, top, and bottom. So you can take out the head. You can take out either arm. A lot of this is It didn't seem like this is something I could specifically aim for, but they did account for. So at the end of each turn, you would kind of add up, oh, wait, I took out that guy's arm. He can't even fire at me, so screw that guy. I'm going to go focus on this tank or focus on something else. And then once you see what everyone is doing, and there's little icons on the top of the sequence, this timeline, where if you click on each one, it'll show you what everyone is doing, like what their specific actions are going to be. And then you assign movement. So you pick, okay, here's where I want to go, and you can kind of like XCOM, you can kind of pick a line, of where you want them to be, and then who you want to fire at. And what's fun is when I would pick the command, okay, attack with what? One guy had a rocket, one guy had a automatic weapon and also had a pistol, so you could fire with both. And you can see specifically how long your turn lasts, and then this is only so much you can do, and you can even have actions carry over into a next turn if you want, if you're planning something really big and complex. And so I would say, okay, I want one mech to go over that way and one go over this way, and then when you're over here, fire on this guy, and then you can watch it kind of play out. And what's fun is you have to account for shooting yourself. You have to account for things being destroyed and things bumping into each other. And so you really have to plan out. You can't just just run at them and shoot. Everything, physically, if you can see like a collision detector, if you're going to run right into that tank, and if it's a low thing and you're a tall mech, it's probably going to mess your legs up and you're probably going to fall over. But it was really fun. Once you put in the attack command into the sequence, you could then kind of slide it around. You could be like, oh, wait, a little bit over. Okay, there. And then when you're finally done with everything, execute, and then you can watch it. You can even when you hit spacebar, it would go into cool slow-mo, and you can move the camera around, see everything happening. And then that turn plays out, and then you move on to the next thing. It was really there were buildings, and so I don't know if there's going to be how many mechs we're going to be able to control in the final game. But it was really fascinating watching other people play this. And by the time I got to do a demo, I was like, okay, I know exactly what I want to do. I've seen the pattern of where they're coming in. I know where I want to direct them. And it's neat because for me, I'm not, something like XCOM just stresses the hell out of me because I'm so scared when I do something. It's really tough for me to read the signs of this is not going to work out. And so I'm frequently putting people into harm's way or moving someone and they're safe. And then someone comes out of nowhere that I didn't see and they blind snipe the guy and then, headshot, he's out. And with this game, it's just really fun to predictively, perceive oh, okay, I see everything that's going to happen. And so part of it is the strategy of how do I minimize damage? How do I use my resources effectively? And the other part is just making cool stuff happen. That was really my big goal. It was okay, I'm going to have these guys, skate around, and it'd be interesting to see if they have extra powers that make them move faster or use more weapons in one turn. But mine was blown. I had never seen a game like this or never seen a concept like this. And it was fun talking to the devs in a position where they're we're still figuring this out. We like where it is right now. And what I played was a lot of fun, but you could tell the HUD was still kind of character designs, I bet, are pretty close to final and just the overall aesthetic of the game. But the very specifics, I think, are going to go through a lot of changes before that game finally comes out. And will I actually play when it comes out? I don't know. This was the next game is called The Sojourn. And this was interesting because every time I looked over, it seemed like people were playing a different section of this game. So I think they actually brought a lot of this game to the event. And this was, think of Unfinished Swan was kind of the vibes. First person puzzle game. And I got that vibe because it was first person, because it felt like you were in a temple. I want to say Rime. Am I remembering that name correctly?
Yeah.
Kind of looked like Rime, just, very simple color palette. Really wanted to focus on.
Rime wasn't first person, but yeah, I think the architecture, yeah.
That, kind of crumbling stone, beautiful but vacant, And so as you're going through these environments, the backgrounds, kind of had a simplistic palette to them, but in the effort to make the tools that you're using to get through these puzzle sections very, stand out and be very obvious, especially if you're looking in the distance. And basically what, I don't know if much like Unfinished Swan, that game evolved in all sorts of crazy ways.
Yeah.
Primarily what I was playing had a lot to do with switching between a light world and a dark world. So you would go up to statues, and you would stand in areas that would then transition you into the light world or dark world. Primarily, the dark world is where you wanted to go. Light world is where you're kind of looking at the puzzles and trying to figure it out. And then when you go into dark world, now it's go time. And every foot you move makes the meter go away until it'll pop you right back out into the light world. And so you kind of have to figure out, okay, I can, and the one other thing that you could do is you could teleport to these statues, but when you would do it, you would swap. So you would swap position with where that statue is. And there were some objects like staircases that would only appear in the dark world and not the light world. So you're like moving towards the staircase and looking at that bar and being like, I'm not doing this right. I got to figure out, let me go all the way back to the beginning of this level. Okay, like if that statue's there and I swap with him, that puts me there, which is right next to that staircase, but I can't get up the staircase because I run out of time, but I need that statue, but I moved the statue when I teleported over here. Okay, so like it was interesting watching other people do it, and I wonder if what I hope is it's not the kind of game where you're stuck into one solution. Like it seems like the kind of game where you can maybe finesse like a fun way to do it, and maybe seems like the kind of game where once you get good at understanding, spatially what it'll take to get through specific environments, you can maybe move on to like area 4 and be like, I got this, and maybe like kind of breeze through some parts before again they throw some other crazy challenge at you. So it was an interesting game to demo that night because there was a lot of very colorful games, a lot of very innovative games, and this was in a lot of good ways because I imagine there's some people watching this video that are like, oh, that's my jam, like a first-person indie puzzle game that's like 5 or 6 hours long, potentially, I don't know, so not necessarily my cup of tea, but something that demoed interestingly for people like that have an open bar, that are just like later on in the evening that have checked out a bunch of crazy games all day and are now thinking like, wait a minute, like I gotta figure this out. So it was a little bit frustrating. It was like the big puzzle game there, so you definitely had to think to get through that stuff. But I'm curious to see beyond what I saw at that event. And like I said, every time I looked back as if I was playing something and glanced over, I was like, whoa, what weird area are they in now? And it was very pretty, and the effects were very cool. And like I said, it's just a very simplistic art style and fun game to run through. One final game, and this is a game that I know you know about. I had heard about before the event and finally got to play it. It's probably a game that you got to play.
Yeah, so I believe it was revealed at last year's Game Awards.
Correct.
And then,
so if you watch the Game Awards at home, then you've probably heard of Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Yeah, and me and Ian got to play it a couple months ago.
So I probably got to play the same thing that you got to play.
Maybe.
But it was like 6 or 7 missions. Like
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
To me, it's like kind of almost like a mix between like a rhythm game and a 3D Sonic game. Yes.
So yeah, part of it is dodging, part of it is for completionists. You want to get all those icons, you want to collect all that stuff. What's really neat is in some of the later sections I did, the missions got a little more elaborate, but the earlier ones were really short and kind of wonderfully so. Because when I was done with it, I was like, oh, that's it. And I was like, well, I'm at this preview event, so I want to play everything in this game. But part of me was like, I want to do that again. Because now there was just that one little triangle that I met. That one time it turned really quick. I was like, well, I didn't know that was there. So they do that a lot, where you're like going into areas and you just can't, there's no way to know that thing was going to be there. You have to have memorized this one course. And I think even the longest thing I did was like 6 minutes. Like they're really not that long. And if you have not seen it, if you're unfamiliar with the game I'm talking about, not a ton of colors going on. It's mostly like purple hues. It's a lot of purple and pink and white.
Yeah, black with like pink and purple on top of it, and a lot of kind of like punk-ish kind of vibes. Yeah.
It
neon punk.
It reminded me when I told the dev, he was like, "Interesting." Was Persona meets Tron.
Okay.
Like imagine the world of Persona, that kind of style, that kind of just wow, the bleeding eyes. Like, what am I looking at? Just because it's so sharp and so fast, and there's just so many little tiny details that just make everything come to life. A
lot of sweeping camera motions. And stuff,
but at the same time, just like Sonic is a great, example because it's just so fast to process sometimes, and it has, there's lots of that create, lots of light bike style stuff where you're on a motorcycle or you're on the object that you're on, will turn into like a plane or surfboard or something, and you'll go, zipping around the environment. And a very loose, dreamlike, concept of a story where you're this person that's literally thrown out of their bedroom window and thrown into this crazy adventure. But man, this game just looks incredible. I mean, it is a very, very pretty game, and it's interesting. Like I got so much in the groove of it that I didn't realize actually how much of it I was controlling. So there's one part where you're going through a city environment and you have to dodge cars and ambulances and stuff, and there's lots of villains in this game. There's lots of like things that you're challenging. So there's little music and rhythm in there. We actually have to like time things like attacks and defenses that you have to do with various like weapons that you just conjure up out of nowhere. But there were one part where there would be a street, and then I'd have to go through like a very narrow gap, and I was just kind of naturally gliding through it. And then one part, I was going toward it, and I wondered, like, is this automated, or am I? And I moved slightly to the right, and nope, boom, like crashed and got taken out. And I was like, oh, okay, I was just in the groove of this and really got to know the environments. But it has such a smart design, because the moment you fail, you go right back in. And like I said, the missions are a really great length that when it seems like you've been chasing after this villain and now it's time for the big confrontation, like that's the mission that's 6 minutes or so. And even that is really simple to get those beats down, memorize. Okay, when I hit that turn, even just in the first one, there's a part where it's almost kind of like you're on a record player. You get on this like circle, and the circle starts spinning around. And if you go all the way to the left, that's where all the little like beads are that you collect. And so it feels good. It feels like a combination of so many weird things, like you're like Sonic and racing games and Guitar Hero, and there's just a lot going on all at once that has this vibe of, this is just fun. This is some crazy dreamscape that this character is going through. You probably will be able to beat this game, I imagine, in a single sitting, but then you're just gonna, I wanted to go back. I wanted to play more. And I played it on the Switch, and so it was really great to play it up on the television and have them blasting the speakers, but also like put on headphones and just kind of find a neat little corner and sit and go through the trials that way. And everything is divided in a very simple linear fashion, so you can see all of the different missions and how well you've done, and I'm sure they're gonna have leaderboards and all of that stuff. But when we first got the email what was going to be there, I was like, yes, I'm really excited to check this game out, because I think this is a perfect game to announce at Game Awards, because it is so visually engaging, and it's just something you see for the first time and you go, what am I looking at? And so I can confirm, having played it, Bled already, you're way ahead of me with that.
I might pop back in and play it again at E3 if there's space in the schedule.
But I don't know if you're going to E3, but I would definitely check that out if that game looks interesting to you, or learn more about it. You can check out all of these games. Again, the embargo's lifted almost right away. There's still some stuff for this evening that we'll be talking about as we get closer to, or actually at E3. But I get such a kick out of this evening, because you can imagine like going from like a fun adventure game to like some crazy pinball action game to this like music rhythm crazy high speed thing to then turn-based strategy to then we're yelling into a speaker to move a shopping cart. Such is the independent evening. So thanks to everybody at Judges Week, Keeley, and everybody there that put that event together. Thank you to Bloodworth for listening to me yammer on about all of these games. And there will be a lot more embargoes that are lifting as we get closer to E3, more fun stuff that we checked out at Judges Week. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, Blood. Talk to you all soon.